right, guys, welcome again. A good friend of mine, Jerry Robinson, across the pond here in New Zealand. We're adjusting the time change, but Jeremy and we correspond a lot, like behind the scenes, a little, because frankly, and I mean this respectfully, there aren't a lot of people that talk to this stuff about because for me, so much of what I see so much about these topics we're going to talk about is so much of the information that's gained and gathered and offered to you guys comes from a plate of like I think of good intentions, but when good intentions are lacking experience, I think there tends to be some frustration. Like the topics we're going to talk about is like, you know, I say durability and resiliency, and we kind of dump that in a power and speed world. There's more than that, but we're talking big picture here. A critical acceleration, right? Power and speed, all those sort of things, and that's going to lead ourselves. And we see that's a big thing that's missed. Like, and so that's a big statement. We're going to narrow it down to what exactly we mean by durability, critical acceleration, things like that. And what's missing? How do we get it in? And like kind of just we want to make you guys critical thinkers. I think that's the big takeaway here. I think Jeremy is like trying to give you guys ways to become critical thinkers because that's like I think special operations are the best problem solvers in the world. And that's what we want to give you guys. So any big overarching thoughts on that, Jeremy? Again, thanks so much for jumping on here, but love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for having me again. Yeah, I think it's as we discussed, probably one of the critical modalities it's lacking within the tactical populations, mainly either special forces or the tactical policing realm, is the acceleration component. It's sort of shelved to the side for all the endurance, long terrain, the old flogged lane and the sweat pile. But when we look, as we both know, operationally, what is the most critical aspect of movement and being proficient, it comes down to your acceleration to being able to move from point A to point B. Um, so I think, yeah, discussing, what actually is acceleration. It's just a change in that velocity of movement. You know what I mean? So that's depending again on a lot of different factors within our population we work with. So you've got the environments, you've got various tasks, different equipment, loads carried, genetic makeups of our operators, their age. We look at their body weight. You're looking at body composition, how that affects movement and speeds, and then you come back to one of the critical components is strength. Strength's linked into it. Without strength, you don't have acceleration and speed. So um, yeah, there's a lot to sort of dissolve with it. But what I see is from the coaching aspect, linking back into our operators, is that critical action of acceleration is just not exposed enough that it probably should be.
Right. I think I kind of just we've had the nature of having a conversation about this before we jumped in. So kind of filling in the gaps is like, well, I want you to all know when we say acceleration, we also mean deceleration equally, right? We like I say Ferrari, a Ferrari is only really awesome because it's brakes. And I go, wait a minute.
Mm.
The Ferrari engine's amazing. What allows for that engine is the brakes. And so I think that's what we're trying to say is like we're trying to develop an energy system or a way about reaction that needs to be trained. It's not inherent. We none of us, not me, not Jeremy, none of our athletes just get it. And so what we're also saying is like that power and speed, that resiliency, that durability, that change of direction, it has to be specific. We can be general. We can start those processes, and and those basic sort of like I say basic plyometrics that lend themselves into be more specific, more specificity. But again, that's what we're trying to say. Is what we see is we see a lot of people have the willingness and the ability to jump into what we would consider hypertrophy, tissue remolding. Strength, people tend to do too much by accident when they're lifting too much load over time. So that's a little higher. So what we're trying to do is the actions on target, the extreme actions on target, other than high stress, high load, is dynamic quickness. And that is
Mm.
where
Yep.
we see as coaches, I think that we see the highest amount of injuries happen. That's why we're saying this. The highest amount of injuries happen in that undeveloped power and speed dynamic phase. We get guys that are pretty good under strength and can handle tension, but but in hypertrophy, we can get guys doing that all the time. But I think that what we said off camera is that critical power and speed, that durability piece, isn't being missed because people don't want it. We feel like it's more or less being missed because that acute dynamic is so uniquely experienced. It's not something we
Mm,
can replicate unless we're acting it. And so I think that that's the thing is there is this missing gap that's always been in sports performance and coaching of like, hey, what is finite minutia? And I think that that's what we're missing is we definitely have some competent folks, but when it comes to that dynamic, life-saving action, we really need people to have experience it so we can set those scenarios up, just like we do CQB. We need
mm,
people with really sophisticated CQB to be the people setting up the scenarios. At some point, there has to be some sophistication so we gain that energy system, not just like, oh, we're doing power and speed. No, we want to gain it. And so that's kind of what I
mm,
think big picture we see is it's missing just because it needs to be taught, not so much because
mm.
anyone's doing wrong necessarily, I think. What are your thoughts?
No, yeah, no, I think that's right. I think everyone's aware of it operationally that, yeah, you've got to get from point A to B, or you've got to move to the form up point, or you've got to react to an external stimulus. So, fuck, we've got to get out of the road or something. Um, but then I think it's just the understanding where can we put that into our training week around all our skills training? Where can we get it? Now, you can get your acceleration just thinking, depending on, you might be on the range doing certain drills, you might be doing walk-in drills, in fire and movement drills. So when you think about it, you're achieving your goal of getting some acceleration and speed in, but it's during your skills work. So
Yes. Yes, yes, yeah.
yeah, so that's
Yep.
yeah. So then I suppose from a coaching aspect, when we're looking at that, we don't need to top that modality back up at the end of the day again. You know what I mean? So
I
if
totally
we've
agree.
covered all that, yeah, if we spent 2 hours in the morning doing fire and movement, different change of direction drills on the road under load, so we're doing the acceleration deceleration, massive G forces to hold through the joints, hips, knees, ankles, lower back, everything's starting to wear down, then we don't need to go and put in another high effort session at the end of that day again because
Right.
we've achieved our goal.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one conception thinking, okay, I haven't done PT for the day, but be smart about it. You know what I mean? It's thinking, okay, yeah, we've done some pretty hard work today.
Yeah.
I've ticked that box for the week. I don't have to get exposed to it again, but I'm not going to double up by going and doing another anaerobic threshold session in the afternoon again.
Yeah.
So,
Because our power and speed sessions at this for the operator guys isn't meant to shouldn't be beating you up. Like we know we come from that deselection, got to be tough, got to be strong, got to be durable. But when we get to the team, we don't want that training to be the deselection, right? And I think that that's the big thing is, where do we put this in? And I think that Jeremy, I'd like to hear thoughts. Like I usually like to use sport before I use tactical to explain a little bit because we go like rugby, for
mm,
example, right?
yep,
The New Zealand All Blacks are not going to do after they do a really high skill, high intense session in the let's say morning, their first session. They're not going to go into the weight room and try to duplicate that intensity. They may try to duplicate that accuracy, right? It's like I know the head strength coach for the Browns. He was a strength coach at SEAL Team 6, a guy named Sean Halls. He was in Nebraska before that. And so one of the things he does, they play football on Sunday. They come back into their stadium, the practice stadium on Monday, and they're like the Walking Dead, just like at the end of the rugby match, right? And so
mm,
he's like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do super compensation exposure, like basically expose them to these dynamic movements, but the stress doesn't show up. Like we get into the lifts, we
mm,
do warm up, like he has them do some of their dynamic power lifts, but lightweight. And so
mm,
instead of the stress coming, as soon as they do their basically very poignant power and speed stuff, they go into recovery. They go into their ice bath.
mm,
So it's like you create the stimulus to go, oh God, here comes the stress, but the stress never comes. And then the
mm,
power and speed module comes on the back end to be accurate. It's like we did a
yep,
bunch of dynamic house runs, right? And then we go to the range, and all we have is a door facade and a target. And all I'm going to do is practice and go into that door, shoot, breath, shoot. So it becomes very
mm,
accurate after after you kicked yourself in the teeth a little bit in the morning. And so I want you guys to see that how sport, they're not going to not work, but they're going to temper their intensity into where it's skill oriented and not just, hey, you got to be big and strong and don't be a pussy. And I think that
mm,
that's what's missing is like we really know how to work hard. But what as a community, what I think we're learning, what Jeremy and I are trying to teach people is how do you work with finite precision that isn't stressing the physical body out, right? Like
Mm.
I want to be focused and use that as my stress orientation in power and speed and not just And so I think that
Yeah,
that's when we work power and speed and durability, there's all we always say there's an aspect of very, very high functioning thought that has to happen.
yeah.
That's kind
Because
of where we teach from.
we want to adapt that skill aspect. We're trying to improve, outline the skills, because that's what you're doing on a range or CQB. You're trying to better yourself. You try to improve the skills. Now, if you do that acceleration and speed work in the AM, and then the afternoon, you don't be going to the gym and doing RDLs and that because the
Right.
hamstrings had already been overloaded. So that's where I see a lot of the issues are because the muscle tissues get overloaded because they don't realize through all them acceleration speed works in the morning, the hamstrings are already fried and the calves. So
Yes.
then why go over and do more hinge base and lumbar extension movement to get in the PM?
Right.
Because there you're doubling up and then things are just going to blow out. So I think you're right. Is just learn what the skill is. We need to improve the skill, and then what stress are we going to put in, whether it's gym work or that to enhance the adaptability for our operational success.
Yeah, and I think that what works for queuing for us real well, and I wonder about you, is like obviously when you're working with the operators like you and I do, and we know that there's a morning session and we got to take some time, and and then we got to hit it again. A lot of the times, almost every case, there's a conversation, and that conversation is to get them to be like, hey, like this second session isn't me as a coach trying to get you to like don't be a pussy session.
Mm,
It's what we say is like, hey man, like let's say hypothetically you've cleared 3 or 4 structures before you get to the place where the bad guy's at. Like, I had to do all of this front-loaded, precise work where I thought I was gonna. I had to go through all this for 20 minutes before I. Holy shit! There's the guy, right?
mm.
So what we want to do also with weight training, there has to be with power and speed, there has to be a modulation and an understanding of it. Like, hey, this is where we push, this is where we pull back. But at no point
Mm,
are we is our focus pulling back. And that's where we start seeing power and speed and injury prevention is like when someone's highly focused, they're likely going to do it better. When they're doing it better, they're likely going to learn and not have injuries. And so what we do
mm,
is with the guys that go, hey, like the effort that we're asking from this is accuracy, not out of breath. And so
mm,
we shift them into that mindset and go, hey, like, we know you guys are all fucking tier one operators. We know you're tough. We know all these things. So let's shift that mindset into more of a sniper mindset. Slow, concise, learn, right? And then we can speed it up. And I think that a lot of guys, when they learn how to modulate their intensities, they get so much more out of this power and speed durability side. Because
mm.
they should feel differently. They should
Yeah,
look differently, but people haven't used to going, hey, bicep curls here might look different than here, than different here, and same with squats and lunges. And
yeah,
I think when they have a coach that takes them through those microcycles, then we go, oh, because these operators, once they experience it, they go, whether it's a gun or
mm,
rifle or demo, same with the barbell.
yeah. I think the important part is having that conversation with the operators that getting the understanding. Okay, with that task, what did it feel like for you? Was it were you performing a max acceleration drill? Was it intermittent? You know what I mean? Or did you feel like you hit max acceleration early? Or was it repeatability? You know what I mean? So you look at the operational tasks, they might be hundreds of different operational tasks, but some of them might never hit max speed. You know what
Right,
I mean?
right,
They
right.
might they might be they might be intermittent, short bursts, and that's where the unpredictability and the chaos happens within our population, our workforce during them tasks, because you might be slowly cruising along at a 3K pace, and all of a sudden, bang, you're on, you're accelerating, you're moving. So, so it's not one set speed, and it's never going to be linear. You know what I mean? Within our population too, it's all going to be offset with a lot of acceleration. But I think a big thing, which I wrote down, it can be repeated in very short bursts.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, so it's not like
Always put
sport
like
where
a
we're going
range,
to hit.
man. Like if we get
Yeah,
people doing skill stuff with the same sort of temperament as they're shooting their pistol range, it's like treat your squat rack like you do your range. Like we
mm,
wouldn't think of like pulling my pistol out, acquiring a really bad front sight, and then just shooting real. It's because generally my gun's pointing in a safe direction. Like no, like I'm
mm,
pulling my gun to bring my gun precisely to my natural point of aim so I can engage it precisely. And when we use a weight room like that, that is specificity because, like, well, think about it in sport. Pick any sport, and we take rugby, we take baseball, and we dissect it in practice into drills. We dissect the sport itself into drills. And then typically at the end of practice, we reassemble the athletes from their different skill work to go full practice. Just like CQB, we do range work, pistol, rifle. Hey,
mm,
Delta's on the range, and in 30 minutes, meet your guys over there. So all the six of us go over there and we go to our kill house after we've done our movement prep, we'll say, with our pistol,
mm,
right? And I think that when people start realizing tier one operators are the ones we should be emulating, and just like we do the Yankees and the All Blacks and all these people, we're emulating
mm,
those folks. And that's the goal. Is but the thing is the All Blacks, just like the New York Yankees, have had multiple decades of in-house practicing their culture
mm,
under very precise focal points, right? But the tactical space is secret. Like nobody gets to dip their toe in and see if they like it and then come back and return. Like when you're in, you're in. And internally
mm,
it's got to be developed. And I think that's why you all may not understand why there's such a frustration on the coaching side, is because now the military law enforcement needs to be internal and self-sufficient. So they're hesitant to reach out from the public and bring information in, but because it's got to be self-sufficient. So I think that's what we're trying to understand is these guys are willing, but most of them have just never been exposed to it. And when they're
mm.
exposed to it, really good shooting, demo, skydiving, they take to it. When people are exposed to really good resistance training for the profession, they really take to it. And I think that's what we keep trying to do is show operators on the inside that they can do it through experience,
Yeah,
not just because some physiologist or somebody is saying you should go do it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the important part is just and as we know with the age and then what I say with a lot of things, a slow bleed effect of years of musculoskeletal injuries starting to creep up from our teens and 20s, 30s right up to the top end, that affects how we move constantly. So that's a big picture is balancing them injuries and your ability to move quick.
Yeah, I know. Can I just throw something at you real quick, kind of on this topic here, because we're talking about acceleration, deceleration, upper body, lower body, right? They are not uniquely the same in the sense of how you're going to expose or treat dynamic acceleration for your upper body versus your lower body. For me, I just big picture. I kind of get your thoughts. Is when I'm working deceleration, for me, everything starts with the feet, right? If my
Mm,
feet are in a good position, we'll say, or like I always get guys in here and go, hey, like put yourself in a shooting position. And then we go, look at your feet. Like, why? What's so
mm,
significant about that? Why did you choose to put your feet there? Well, because you want to save
mm.
your own life, right? If I have my feet too
Yeah,
narrow, my shooting platform's shitty. If it's too wide, it's also not super good. So what I end up doing with these sort of things is like trying to get people to realize that if our ground isn't managed, everything up top is bad, right?
mm,
Everything is going to suffer. And so I think a lot of the stuff for me when it comes to ground force management, it's like I might have a really strong upper body, but my lower body is not, right? And so that's what we really see with a lot of people. They're very anterior dominant, and they're very
mm.
hamstring weak. And so what we
Yeah,
see is
yeah,
a really poor deceleration of the lower body.
yeah.
And that's kind of like that's kind of what we see more and more than anything else. It starts with the feet.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I always look at especially on the acceleration, deceleration components, think about what are my force producing muscles and what are my force absorbing muscles and how's that going to affect, I mean, you spoke about there, what's, the hamstring, distal and proximal, where are we working in them knees? But you're right, looking for the coaching aspect, that coaching eye is so critical because if you're looking at someone just to step down off just say a 30 centimeter box, for example, always look for how are the feet interacting with the knees and how are the knees interacting with the hips. So, and then you can work on the trunk and everything all around it. But you can start looking, not only getting out of the linear, but look at it, the frontal plane, how they land and get all the different aspects of
Right.
the operator. And they're giving them some good feedback saying, hang on, we just have a look back here, whether you video it or you put it on your phone. But yeah, that's the art of coaching is that breaking down, like you said, the ability to, like a pilot, land before you can take
Yeah.
off. So Because you can't. What's the old saying? You can't shoot a cannon out of a canoe. Is that something like that? It's unstable to try and unleash out. But that's what you want to do. You want to unleash massive amounts of force and power out. But if it's unstable to start with, you're just going to waste energy.
Yeah. And I think that so like kind of in my kind of big summary for a lot of this is pretty kind of straightforward. I think that when a person understands how to implement these things, they become very useful. When people don't know how to implement them, what it means is they don't know how to articulate to the operator its value. And I think that that's where the problem ends up being also too is because operators are as skeptic as there are humans, right? As skeptic as there are. And when you have somebody coming in saying, "Hey, it should be this way," but they're not, but they're lacking experience, like it or not, there's not a lot of continuity. Like, and I don't
Mm,
mean this to be like a negative thing, and I don't know if it's right or if it's wrong. We have some pretty sophisticated guys, like smart physiologists, good coaches at the command I was there, but there wasn't a lot of advice that was received, and I think it was largely because they didn't do it. I mean,
mm,
that was, and then and it's a weird thing that you're like, well, you don't have to do the job to be the best coach, and we know that. Like the best rugby players are not the best coaches, best, and that's, but I think the
mm,
thing is that when somebody, even if they weren't the best, that's what I'm saying. Like I know so many coaches that never did any of this. Like I know so many. It's unfortunate. Like, it's hard to say that I actually looked up to coaches before that now in hindsight I really didn't do a fucking thing. It's wild.
mm,
Like they're academically really strong. But my point is when I, as an operator, was going to these coaches saying, "This is what I'm feeling and experiencing," they're like, "I don't really know what that means.
yeah.
Like, I have no idea
Yeah.
what that means. Like, I have no idea what that kind of stress is. I have no idea what reaction from that kind of stress is." And all they have is textbooks to look up. So I never
Mm,
got any good advice from the things I needed. It's like, hey, here's
mm,
a squat. Like, okay, got that, but like, when is a barbell back squat directly correlated to tier one operators' abilities? It fucking
mm,
doesn't. Now, do we want to squat? Yeah, but like when we're working at the highest level with the All Blacks, the strength coach isn't fucking guessing, right? Like it's weird. Like
yeah.
why is almost every single strength coach and anyone associated with the tactical space in the United States is fucking clueless because they've never ever done it. And like, but I also like, well, this is probably how it's always been, you know? So
Mm,
like
yeah.
for me, I think that like that's the thing is what I'm trying to encourage guys is that it's you don't need a really high level sophistication of a physiologist. You just need to be open minded that resistance training ultimately can be very athletic. We don't want to be the best powerlifters. We don't want to be the best bodybuilders. We don't even want
Yeah.
to be the best rugby players. We want to be the
Mm,
best because now it's 2025, last I checked. We've had
yeah.
enough time for our special operations to have their own physical performance identity. And we fucking don't because we're listening
Mm,
to people that don't know what they're talking about and we're comparing ourselves and our athletes to sports that aren't comparable to getting shot.
mm, yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
soapbox right there for the day.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's the environment, and unless you lived it and learn it, and then that's where I've had these discussions with recently with a couple of physiotherapists, which are more like athletic trainers over in the US, I presume, physiotherapists about they're treating a couple of the operators that I was working with now. Again, going on that concept, them understanding what actual not a return to sport model is after an injury, you're going another 150% tenfold operational ready, and they just look at you. What do you mean? Well, I said it's not a sport. There, I said, how about you walk around your practice for the rest of this day with a 20-kilo vest on? Just walk around for the next 8 hours, sit up and down, and then you come back to me and ask how your body's feeling after that. And this is you're fresh and not injured.
Yes.
So
And it's frightening
it's
how few
yeah,
people have even done that.
100%. No, I think then you get an understanding who you're working with, and then speak to and understand that yeah, you're not dealing with an athlete going in. You're dealing with someone that's probably had 20 odd years, 30 years of experience of, like I said, that slow bleed effect, massive amounts of loading going through, and thinking about where they need to next get. back to for their age. But yeah, there is definitely a disconnect between some coaches and some of the medical realm about what they think is the optimal kind of parameters to be loaded back to being operational ready. And I see it's way from what they think sometimes.
Because my experience, and
Yeah.
we'll shift on to our next topic here, but my
Yeah.
personal experience was this: we had strength coaches, dietitians, athletic trainers, PTs at the command. We, as squadron, as operators, wanted our human performance staff and athletic training staff to experience what we did. So we wanted them to skydive. We wanted to get them in the boats. We wanted them, and most of them couldn't do it physically because they were already too old, too broken, too this, too that. They could not take as a safety. They couldn't even tandem jump with us because
Yeah.
the fear of backs, knees, and hips of these out of shape strength coaches. Like,
Mm.
no wonder. And then it's funny, like I had people write back to be like, "Oh no, they were friends of mine, this, that, and the other." I'm like, no, like, why is it that fat, bald strength coaches with lots of years experience who can't do the movements still attribute their ability of being a great strength coach when they can't fucking do anything? Like, I have zero
No.
respect for that. Like, and I mean that. Like, we are supposed to be the example, right? Like, when you go to a range, if the guy that's teaching you to shoot can't fucking shoot, why are we?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's the problem is we, unfortunately, in the military and law enforcement and fire, we are honorable humans, and we're gonna listen to our chain of command for the most part. So we're gonna bite our fucking lip and do its best for the community, and we do. But it's 2025, man. We're
Yeah.
way past pretending, and I think that that's where is what we're trying to do. Is Jeremy and I know that there's operators out there that are. We know. Here's my statement. I know for a fact that the operators at the tier one level on your country and in mine are fucking smarter than the people, absolutely fucking smarter, more intelligent than the people that are training them to do these things.
Mm.
I'm certain that the things that we say, the operators can learn and completely fucking stiff arm the coaches like I did. And don't listen to the coaches, dietitians, athletic trainers. Well, I take that back. Rob Skinner, the dietitian, is fucking brilliant,
Mm.
just like Louise Burke in Australia. So, like,
Yeah.
there's some really, really great coaches I've been exposed to. But because I've been exposed to such good coaches, I've seen such inept coaches, it's frightening.
Mm.
So, we want the operators to know this. That's why we're doing this. We're not, Jeremy and I aren't doing this for the coaches. Jeremy and I are doing this for the operators because we
Yeah.
know you can handle this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with it. It's just it's still there. It's happening over here. I dare say it'll be happening the same over the other side in the UK. I think in Europe it'll be. It just doesn't. I agree with you. It's 2025, but you still see so much changes, and people just don't understand basic fitness testings that link in, which is so wrong. It's just all still a
Operators
shambles
want it,
everywhere.
man. I think that's the thing is like the operators
Yeah.
are hungry for this stuff. They
Yeah.
absorb it so well because it directly correlates to them to put more accuracy to action.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
it. Like, how can I be more lethal on my gun when I know people know I'm hunting you? Like, when bad
Mm.
guys know they're being hunted, they fucking like it's a frightening thing, right? So like
Mm.
we can't necessarily put that intensity into a weight room, but we can put that posture into it. All
Mm.
that posture into that doorway, all that posture in that fight, we can work that posture.
Mm.
That's exactly what every other sport does, except for the
Yeah.
tactical population, because we somehow think that the fucking plank and the sit up is now performance enhancing.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. Yeah, and that's our goal is just simply want to make everyone at the top of their game for a long period of time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Going into now the aging, like we mentioned, the aging operator is just now we want to make them just transfer as long as and then leave on their terms when they want to, depending obviously on the musculoskeletal injuries and certain things that come out of it. But our job is straight away for me is just keep them durable and injury free to be able to optimally perform. So that's it as a coach. It's quite simple, really. It's not you don't need to get into too much. People just overanalyze, coaches overanalyze too much stuff, but it's simple as you're either there strength and the conditioning's on the other side of it from the coaching aspect, and then in between it's the longevity and health component.
Yeah, and then we'll get into that in a later video too for sure. But I think The idea is that we know that a lot of operators get in and they get to a point where they're like, I don't how do I train? Like, I've never been an SAS operator. I've never been a SEAL Team 6 operator. Like, how do they train, right? Like,
Mm,
that's what we're talking about. There are so very few of those people that have had the experience of saying, I've been through it, I have the formal education, I practiced it, now I've
mm,
applied it as an operator, and I get out and I had some shortfalls. Like, so now I want to make those shortfalls not your guys' shortfalls.
mm.
Those
Yeah.
gaps have been closed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for the operators, then just thinking if they've got a lagging area like we're speaking about here, if they haven't had enough much exposure over a periods of time, this could be just due to deployments or skill lead-up training or what it is. If they're lagging a bit in these accelerations and that, it's it's then them just taking on themselves, saying, yeah, okay, I haven't had the exposure to it for a bit. Now it's time, and I'm ready to then go, okay, where can I improve that meters per second? Because we need for our fire and movement, or I think you might call it the rush over there. Used to the old army used to do a rush test, I think it was, or some leap and bound thing over a period of time. But at the end of the day, then the meters per second that you can do is going to be critical. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Because then if you add a load to that and you're slower, I'll be rather moving over that 30 meters at 6 meters per second though, and instead of being 3 meters per second over 30. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
And then
That's
yeah,
the point is like people going, hey, I know how to measure bench press for 225, but they don't
mm,
know how to measure or equate value with physics. And I'm like, how the hell do you have a degree in exercise science without having a wide understanding of ballistic or movement of pendulum physics? Like, that's our
yeah,
whole, that's our entire physiology, right? So
mm,
to that point, I think that that's the thing is because when you see the operator, when you go to free fall jump master school, it's all physics. When you go to breacher school, master breaching school, it's all physics. It's all
yeah,
physics. And so when you say, hey, the physics of you being a fucking stud are right here. They're like, well, shoot, why did nobody give me these? Right? It's because you don't get a see behind the curtain until you get the little badge that says, I got the clearance to get behind the curtain. That's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we don't need
And that's the thing.
clearance to tell you good training, though. That's the other side.
Nah,
Like,
nah.
good training's available to everyone if you want to listen.
No, that's the thing, and it's just like people will come to us, and straight away I'll go, well, if you haven't been exposed, go and do a walk in 30 meter on the fly.
Yeah,
Divide your the t- the volume or the distance, which is 30 meters. By the time you did it, if you did it in 5 seconds, well, you're running at 6 meters per second. I'm happy with that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so
Yes.
it's not hard, but it's going to make the step and go, okay, where can we build on that? Then we start adding a load to that. Then you look at like we spoke about the individual's relative strength and
Yes,
all the
that's
other
correlative.
as
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
it's all
Like
linked into it.
it's not hard. Like that's the thing is
Mm,
like you said off camera. It's like people don't want to do this work ahead of time because it's like that is the entire profession. The entire
mm,
profession is to get everyone to understand those movement patterns so we can speed them up, slow them down, and change direction. That's the whole job. And
yeah,
every single aspect of direction change tells us as an operator, am I stable to shoot? Am I stable to shoot? Or has stress taken over where I'm losing my sight picture and my accuracy's gone?